I wasn't even supposed to be there. Just dropping off a box my dad left behind when he moved out. Some old records, books that smelled like mildew, and a couple of shirts I guess he didn't care to take. I didn't know what I expected. Probably someone tired looking, makeup smudged from crying. Maybe a cigarette in one hand and a door half shut in my face. Instead, she opened it. Leah. And everything in me went still. She was barefoot on the tile, wearing a faded linen shirt over black leggings. Her hair was a little messy, twisted up with a pencil, and she had paint on one wrist like she'd been in the middle of something when I knocked. "Hi," I said, suddenly unsure if I should even be holding the box like it was a peace offering. "I think this is yours." "Well, his, but—" She stared at me for a second too long. "You look more like him than he ever did," she said, not smiling, not bitter either, just quiet. I didn't know what to do with that. "I'm Nate, his son," I added, though she obviously knew. Leah nodded and opened the door wider. "Bring it in. Kitchen table's fine." The house felt nothing like him. Soft light, worn wooden floors, plants everywhere, some trailing down from shelves. It smelled like lemon and turpentine. "Are you painting?" I asked, mostly to fill the silence. "Trying to," she muttered. "But I keep getting distracted." I followed her into the kitchen and set the box down on the table. Her fingers brushed the lid, then paused. "You can leave it," she said. "I don't think I want to open it right now." I nodded, but I didn't move. Something about her made stillness feel like gravity. She glanced at me again, eyes narrowing. "You're taller than him, too." I laughed, unsure. "You keep comparing us." "No," she said quietly. "I keep trying not to." There was a shift. Barely anything. But I felt it. Her gaze held for a second longer than it should have. Not seductive. Not flirty. Just measured. Careful. Like she was remembering a line she wasn't supposed to cross. I looked away first. "So what did he do this time?" I asked, my voice thinner than I meant it to be. "Walk out or just fade away?" She tilted her head. "Do you really want to know?" I thought about it. Thought about how my dad always talked about Leah like she was a footnote. A that woman kind of story. But she wasn't a footnote. Not in this house. Not in this moment. She poured a glass of water, handed it to me. Her fingers touched mine. Warm. Steady. "I don't think he ever really knew me," she said, almost to herself. "You can't love someone you don't even try to see." I swallowed. The air between us shifted again. Leah took a step back, but not far. Just enough to lean against the counter, watching me. "What about you?" she asked. "Do you see people, Nate?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know what she meant, or maybe I did, and that was the problem. Outside, a car passed. Inside, it was too quiet. My fingers still tingled where she'd touched them. She pushed off the counter, brushing past me to reach for a towel. Her hand grazed my side. Intentional? Probably not. But I didn't move. And then she said it. "You shouldn't come back here." But she didn't look at me when she said it. She looked down, and I could already feel myself planning the next time I would. The second time I came back, I told myself it was about the box. I'd forgotten to check if it had the right books, or if one of them belonged to me. That was the excuse. Sounded good in my head. Better than "I want to see her again," or "I can't stop thinking about how she looked at me." She was in the garage this time, hunched over a broken cabinet, paint flecks in her hair. One side of the door was hanging off, slumped like a wounded arm. "You're bleeding," I said before I could stop myself. She looked up, startled. "Jesus, Nate." Then she followed my gaze to the edge of her palm. A shallow nick, still fresh. "Just a scrape," she muttered. "I was trying to fix the hinge, but it keeps swinging loose." "Let me." She hesitated. Not at the offer, at me. I took the screwdriver from her and knelt beside the cabinet. The screws were rusted, stripped. I could feel her watching me. Not in that careful, polite way, but like she was cataloging something. "You always know how to fix things?" she asked eventually. "Only when I care if they break," I said. The words hung there. She looked away. There was dust in the air. Faint smell of old paint, citrus hand soap, cedar from the shelves. I noticed how she tucked her foot under the other when she stood, how she rubbed the back of her neck like she'd forgotten how to hold herself. And I wondered, again, what my dad had seen in her, or what he hadn't. "You don't have to keep checking in," she said. "I'm not your responsibility. That's not why I'm here." She nodded, slowly. "Then why?" I didn't answer. My grip tightened around the screwdriver, hands shaking just enough to make me mad at myself. She knelt next to me suddenly, too close. Her hand grazed mine, not to take the tool, just to still me. "You remind me of a younger version of me," she said softly. "Not your father. Me." I turned to look at her. Her eyes weren't glassy or soft. They were sharp, a little tired, and open in a way that made my chest feel tight. "What happened to her?" I asked. She shrugged. "She waited. Too long. For someone who never showed up." I wanted to say something then, something bold or stupid or honest. But the words stuck. "I made tea," she said suddenly, standing. "It's probably cold now, but if you're not in a rush." She didn't wait for an answer, just walked back inside. Slow, like she wasn't sure if I'd follow. And I did. Not because of the tea. Not because of the box. Because when she touched my hand, I didn't feel like a kid playing grown-up. I felt seen. And for a second, that scared the hell out of me. Her tea tasted like chamomile and something bitter underneath. She poured it without asking, set the mug near me on the table without meeting my eyes. The kitchen was quieter this time. Or maybe I just noticed it more. The ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, the way her sleeves kept slipping down her arms, exposing the delicate crease of her elbow. "I haven't had someone in this house since," she started, then stopped. "Since him," I said, finishing it for her. She didn't nod, but she didn't correct me either. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers wrapped around the warm mug even though I wasn't drinking. "You still miss him?" Her laugh was short, not cruel but sad. "I miss the idea of who I thought he was. That counts less than people think." I looked at her then, really looked, and she wasn't wearing makeup today. Her eyes had faint circles underneath, and there was a small scar by her collarbone I hadn't noticed before. Something about it made her more real, more dangerous. "Do you talk to him?" I asked. "My dad. Not in years," she said. "He doesn't even know I still live here." I didn't say anything for a long time. Then she reached across the table. Her fingers brushed a smudge off my cheek. Paint, maybe from the cabinet earlier. But she didn't pull away. Her hand stayed near my jaw, hovering. I exhaled, slow. "Leah," I said. First time I'd said her name out loud. And she closed her eyes like hearing it cost her something. Before either of us could speak, her phone buzzed. Loud in the silence. She didn't check it right away. But when she did, her body stiffened. Subtly, like she didn't want me to notice. "Everything okay?" I asked. She turned the screen face down. "Just someone I don't feel like explaining." I didn't push, but something in my chest tightened. Then, footsteps. Outside. Gravel crunching. She froze. "You parked on the street, right?" "Yeah." She stood, moved toward the window like instinct, peeking between the curtain slats. "Neighbor," she said, almost to herself. "Wrong house, probably." But her voice had changed, tighter, thinner. I stood too. "Should I go?" She turned to me, and for a second, I thought she might say yes. But instead, she stepped closer. Close enough to smell the soap on her skin. "No," she said. Quiet. Firm. "Stay." I didn't move. Couldn't. Her hand touched my arm. Just above the elbow. Not possessive, more like grounding. And in that instant, I forgot who she used to be to someone else. She wasn't his ex. She was Leah, and my pulse was a roar in my ears. We didn't talk after she touched my arm. She made another pot of tea, though neither of us drank it. I sat at the edge of the couch, back too straight. She stood by the window again, arms crossed, jaw clenched like she was bracing for something. Finally, I said, "You're scared." Her eyes didn't leave the window. Of what? I didn't answer right away. I watched her. The way her hand kept twitching near her mouth like she wanted to say something but kept pulling it back down. "Of this," I said quietly. "Whatever this is turning into." She looked at me then. Slow. Careful. "You think this is something?" she asked. Not mocking, just soft. Like she needed to hear me say it. I swallowed. "I think I can't stop thinking about you when I'm not here. And when I am here, I forget why I'm supposed to leave." She didn't flinch, but her throat moved when she swallowed. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she murmured. "You were just supposed to drop off a box. You were supposed to forget about him," I said. "But you didn't." Silence. Long enough to start hurting. Then she walked toward me. Sat down on the couch, not beside me. Angled, knees almost touching mine. "I'm not proud of who I was with your father," she said. I let myself shrink. I kept waiting for someone to choose me without ever asking myself if I deserved more than being a placeholder. I wanted to touch her hand, but I didn't. "Then why let me in?" I asked. "Why not shut the door that first day?" She breathed in, long and slow. "Because you looked at me like I was still someone. Not a mistake." Her voice cracked at the end. Just slightly, and I didn't think. I just reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. It was quiet, so quiet I could hear both of us breathing. "You're not him," she said, "but you carry pieces of him. Sometimes I see a glance or the way you stand. It's not fair, but it happens, and it scares me." I leaned in. "What do you see now?" She didn't answer. She just looked at me. Eyes wide, mouth slightly parted like she forgot how to speak. Her hand was still in mine. The room felt too small for what was happening between us. And then, "If I asked you to kiss me," she whispered, "would it ruin everything?" I didn't move, because that wasn't a question for answering. It was a test, and we were both already failing. I didn't kiss her. Not then. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something in her face, the way she was asking, not leaning, made me freeze. So instead, I said the only honest thing I had. "I wouldn't let it ruin you." That made her look away, like she wasn't sure if that made it better or worse. Then the knock came. 3 sharp raps at the door. Leah stiffened. "Don't move." I stood anyway. "Who is it?" She was already heading toward the hallway, wiping at her face with the sleeve of her sweater, like she could erase whatever had just passed between us. I followed, slower. When she opened the door, I didn't recognize the woman at first. Short blonde hair, red nails, heels too high for the cracked pavement. "Sorry for dropping by," the woman said. Then her eyes flicked to me, paused. "Oh, he's here." "Carla," Leah said, tone unreadable. "I texted. You didn't answer." Leah forced a tight smile. "You didn't say you were coming. I thought you should know." Carla glanced at me again, eyes sharp, curious. "Your ex-husband called me. Said his son's been asking questions." The words hit the air like ice water. Leah's breath caught. Her fingers curled around the edge of the door. Carla looked right at me. "I assume that's you?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, Nate." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Did you get what you came for?" Leah cut in. "That's enough." Carla shrugged. "He deserves to know, doesn't he?" "Know what?" I asked. Silence. Leah looked at me, and her face changed. Something cracked. "I should have told you," she whispered, "before any of this started." "Told me what?" She took a shaky breath. "You were around." More than you remember. Carla snorted softly. She used to babysit you when your mom dropped you off during the custody weeks. Bet he didn't mention that part. I blinked. The hallway tilted a little. No, I said. He didn't. Leah was pale now, her eyes wet. It wasn't like that. You were small, barely talking. I only helped out for a few months. Then they moved again. I stepped back. Just half a step, but enough for her to notice. I didn't recognize you until that second visit, she said quickly. You'd changed so much. And then, I couldn't unsee it. Why didn't you say anything? Her lips trembled. Because I didn't want that version of you to come between this one. Carla raised an eyebrow, amused. Well, this just got interesting. Leah's voice broke. Nate, say something. I opened my mouth and nothing came out, because I wasn't sure if the line we hadn't crossed had just moved closer, or disappeared entirely. She didn't chase me right away. I needed air. I didn't even remember walking out, just the next moment. Gravel under my shoes, the porch light humming behind me, and Leah still inside with a woman who seemed too pleased with the damage. The door opened 5 minutes later. She stepped out barefoot, sweater sleeves pushed up, hair down now like she'd given up holding it together. I was going to tell you, she said quietly. You have to believe that. I stayed near the edge of the porch. Not running. Not staying. Why didn't you? Because I didn't think it would matter. Then I did. Then it was too late. She stopped a few feet away. No closer. Like she didn't trust herself. When I first saw you, she said, I thought you looked nothing like him. But the longer you stayed, her voice thinned. It scared me how easy it was to forget that there was ever a connection between you and that part of my life. I looked at her. You mean me and him? She nodded once. And what that meant about me. The wind moved through the trees behind us. I could smell the faint lemony paint again from the garage. It made me feel like I was back in that kitchen. Her hand near my face. Everything unwritten. I sat on the porch step. She stayed standing. I'm not a kid anymore, I said. And you're not who you were then. No, she said quietly. But some people won't care. They'll see something else. I don't care what they see. She laughed, but it broke halfway. That's because you still think this story can end without hurting anyone. She sat beside me, slow, cautious. We didn't touch. Leah, I said, tell me to go and I'll go. I'll pretend it never happened. She didn't look at me, just stared out into the dark yard. That's the worst part, she whispered. I don't want you to go. Silence, but not empty. I should have walked away when you knocked on that door, she said. But something about you made me feel like I still had time. Like I could be someone new, if only for a moment. I looked at her hand resting on the stair between us. Slowly, I placed mine next to it, not touching, just close. I don't want to be a moment, I said. She finally turned to face me. And this time, she didn't ask if kissing me would ruin everything. She leaned in. Not dramatic. Not perfect. Her forehead touched mine like an apology. Her hand covered mine like a decision. It's been 7 weeks since I sat beside her on that porch and didn't move away. 7 weeks of not looking over my shoulder. Not pretending the feelings weren't real just because they weren't convenient. We don't hide it. Not anymore. But we don't explain it either. Not to friends. Not to family. Definitely not to my dad, who texted once asking why I was still hanging around that house. I didn't answer. Leah didn't ask me to. She's still the same. Careful with her space. Slow to say what she means. Quieter when she's tired. But I've learned the difference between her silence when she's shutting down and her silence when she just wants me nearby. And me? I stopped trying to make sense of how it happened. Because it didn't happen at us. It happened between us. Like heat rising off something broken. Like a door neither of us realized was still open until we both walked through it. We talk about it sometimes. Not the details, but the way we each circled something neither of us had the courage to name for too long. Leah told me once, half asleep on the couch, my head on her lap, "It was never about your father, not for a second." I believed her, because whatever part of me came from him had nothing to do with the way she touches the back of my neck when she walks past, or the way I know the smell of her skin better than the one I grew up calling home. We're not perfect. We argue. She pulls away when she's overwhelmed. I sometimes talk too much to fill the spaces she's still learning how to leave open. But we circle back. Every time. Because the truth is, some people don't come into your life at the right time. Some just come when you're finally able to see. And maybe love isn't about how a story starts. Maybe it's about who stays when it could have ended. She kissed me this morning before I left her place. Paint still on her wrist from a shelf we put up together last night. "I used to be afraid people would judge me for loving you," she said. I looked at her and said, "I'm not afraid anymore." And neither of us smiled. We didn't have to, because some things don't need proving. They just need staying.